16.1. Again, we got a lot of vocab. So we want to make sure that we cover all this stuff, the different types of surveys and things that are going to happen. So here we go. All right. So you can use data to help answer questions about the world. The specific question that you are trying to answer, or the specific information that you are trying to gather, is called a characteristic of interest. Okay? So you want to know how many hybrid cars, how many miles per gallon they get. That's your characteristic of interest. Question, whatever information you are gathering, that is that. Does that make sense? Probably not a huge vocabulary. Sample survey. One way we collect is by using a sample survey. Sample survey poses one or more questions of interest to obtain sample data from a population. Recall, a population represents all the possible data that are in the interest of survey, and a sample is a subset of the data that is selected from the population. All right? So up here, it says a researcher wants to design a sample survey to determine the amount of time that U.S. teenagers between 16 and 18 spend online each day. Okay? Identify the characteristic of interest. That would be the amount of time spent on each day by a 16 to 18-year-old. Does it matter that it's for 16 to 18-year-olds? Yes. Okay? That details about this characteristic of interest. Identify the population. Okay, now what is the population? The population is the teenagers between 16 and 18 years old. Now, do you see how this says right here? Identify, do you see how this says? Identify the population that the research is trying to measure by using a sample survey. Okay? Right here it says they were discussing the population of the survey. The population is all the 16 to 18-year-olds in the United States. The population is all the teenagers in the United States. Do you see the difference between? What does this one say? Is this all teenagers? Is that what this person was studying? Now, why is this the population? The population is everyone that this would include. And if I go back up here, it says what? The amount that U.S. teenagers between these ages spend online. Does that make sense? Now, what if they had just said the amount that teenagers between ages 16 through 18 spend online? Now, what does that change? Now it becomes even more broad, because now I got to include teenagers who live in Mexico, Canada, right? U.S. narrows it down to just this United States. You following me? All right. Write a survey question, so make, on average, how many hours do you spend? So this is, write a survey question that a researcher could use to help this. So basically, what question could you ask the teenagers? On average, how many hours do you spend online a day? On average, how many hours do you spend online each day of the week? Anything, something like that. So here's the thing that we kind of already talked about. When sample data are collected in order to describe a characteristic of interest, it is important that such a sample be a representative of the population population as possible. One way to collect a representative sample is by using a random sample. So if I was doing this for the United States, this one that's up here, do I want to just survey kids who are in Florida? Or would that be biased? Okay, a random sample is a sample that is selected from a population in such a way that every member of the population has the same chance of being selected. So what was my population for? The United States. If I just sample people in Florida, do people in California have just as likely a chance to be picked? No. What if I go to a database that has all the teenagers listed between 16 and 18 of all all United States, and I just pick teenagers from that list randomly, and I send letters to them at their household? Would that be a random survey? Yes. Is that bias? No. Okay, a bias sample is a sample that is collected in a way that makes it unrepresentative of the population. So the sample should include 16 to 18-year-olds from various states. Is that true? Yes. It should include people who live in different types of community, like urban, suburban, and rural. Rural. That one's always fun. Rural. Why is Mr. Hart barking? I've always said he was a dog. List some additional strategies that they could have. Right? Some should be male, some should be female. Some should be 16, some should be 17, some should be 18. Right? All these different things should happen. Different ethnic groups. Does that make sense? Yeah. And these are the kind of questions that you want to know, like, so I was in church on Sunday, and I started chuckling to myself because the guy was talking about percentages all the time. 82% of this, and 7 blah, blah, blah percent, and I just was going, I wanted to raise my hand and go, can you tell me what your population was? Where was the survey conducted? Like, I wanted to ask all these questions. So I was kind of laughing that it was fit with my lesson that I was doing, and I'm going, we have no idea if you're lying or not. I hope you're not lying because you're in church. It'd be real bad. But hey, whatever.
So this week, Abby tried to call up a pastor for lunch.
Yeah. I don't know how.
Mr. Martin did this. Every week there's something new that Mr. Martin says.
Alright, so this person suggests that the researcher could post a survey online and distribute the link to the survey to students after school on Friday as they're leaving the building. Will this result in a biased sample? Yes. Putting the survey online means the students who answer the survey will be the ones who spent more time online, probably. Right? Because if you're just handing this out, you can't force people to take your survey, correct? So if you have someone who doesn't spend a lot of time online, are they going to be comfortable filling out something that's online? Now, at some point, do you just have to get a dead-gum survey out and take it? Can you answer everybody's question? No. But do you want to try to do the best that you can? Yes. That's why you've seen, you have a whole bunch of different options most of the time when you're filling out these kind of things. So, like, you can do paper, you can do, like, I'll come and interview you. There's a link to the, because different people like different things. So the more that you can accommodate the different types of people, the more variety you're going to get in your answer and truly get a sample of the population. Does that make sense? But you can't, you can't cater to everybody's need in this survey, but you can do, a lot that will help your survey become perfect. Now, is a survey ever going to be exact? Chances are not real good. Are they going to be pretty close to what the actual data is? Yes. Are they good for people to use, like, if I'm in, if I'm a company and I'm trying to advertise, and my advertisement is for teenagers, whatever my product is goes to teenagers. Do I want to take a survey and look at where more kids are spending time, whether on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter? Yes, that way I can put my advertisement in a place that's going to, get the most views. So, it's not going to be perfect, but it gives me enough information to where I can make an educated decision. All right. In an observational study, data are gathered about a characteristic of the population by simply observing and describing events in their natural setting. This happens with children when they are trying to see if they have certain maybe characteristics about them. They'll take them to a person will come out and watch their behavior, how many times they do certain things, and they'll put little tick marks, and maybe this means they have different, like I know that Kai had an observational study done on him to see, it was just a pain in the butt kid. That's what we came to the conclusion of. But they just go, so like recording the number of children who use a swing at a local park would be an example of a simple observational study. You go and sit at the park and you tally, don't offer them ice cream. Be the creeper who's in the corner, tallying kids. So the result of an observational study state that approximately 70% of in-house daycare centers in one U.S. state show as much as 2.5 hours of television to children per day. The observational study examined 132 daycare centers in one state. All right, so identify the population, the sample, and the characteristic of interest in this. So if we were going to identify the population, what would be the population? And do we know what state? No. What would be the sample? The 132 daycares. What's the characteristic of interest? Someone besides Sarah? Well, that's what they found. What did they go and study? How many hours of television they showed to the children per day? Right, population is all of the in-house daycare centers in a state. Sample is that 132. The characteristic of interest is how much TV. List some similarities and differences between an observational study and a sample survey. Okay, what are some of the similarities? Okay, you're collecting data in both of them. Got to have a population, got to have a sample from it. How's the data collected in one of them?
You're just watching someone naturally get the other one, and you're asking.
Right. So one, you're not asking them anything. You're not going up to the park. Did you swing on the swing today? You're literally watching them, right? Yeah, like I said, don't drive a van, no ice cream. All right? So here's some things. The goal of both is to collect meaningful data. That's kind of like we said. One difference is how the data is collected. Usually you have a survey or questionnaire for the sample. Observational, you look by just watching them. People do that all the time for their sleep. They have an observational study where they watch people how they sleep, and they record if they have sleep apnea or if they have snoring that's waking them up, or something that is causing them to be tired throughout the day because they're not getting the rest that they need, because your body's got to go into a deep sleep, and those people never get to that. So they help them out with different breathing machines and all kinds of stuff, but they have to do an observational study before they can figure out what's wrong. An experiment gathers data on the effect of one or more treatments or experimental conditions on the characteristic of interest. Members of a sample, also known as experimental units, that's all you're known as, it's just an experimental unit, 8579, are randomly assigned to a treatment group. This is what my father will be going through, right? This is what he'll be doing. They're going to look at his stuff, they're going to give him this medicine, and they're going to be seeing if the treatment works. Research conducting an experiment to test the effectiveness of a new asthma drug. They collected data from a sample of 200 asthma patients. 100 of the patients received a placebo treatment. Do you guys know what that is? What is a placebo?
It's where like it's like a sugar pill that's like meant to like make you think that it has like the effect of a normal pill.
Absolutely, because they don't want. Because seriously, we don't understand or use the power of our brain. But they don't want you just taking a drug and thinking that you're going to get better be the reason that you're getting better. They want to know that this drug is actually what's causing you to get better. But that's the power of your brain. Like, they're saying that, like you have a headache. You give a kid a tablet that just has water and sugar in it. Basically. Give it to them. All of a sudden they're like, man, my headache's gone. And you're like, that's all from you. It was just in your mind. They don't want that to happen. They want to know that when they're giving them this drug, that is the power of the drug that's helping out with the asthma. So they have to do that. So the other 100 received the new drug along with the inhaler. Monthly blood and breathing tests were performed on all 200 patients to determine if the new drug was effective. So identify the population, the sample, and so what's the population? Who is this eventually going to go to?
All the asthma patients.
All the asthma patients. Okay, who is the sample?
200.
The 200. What's the characteristic of interest?
The effectiveness of the drug.
Boom, look at you guys. All right, now what are the treatments in this experiment? How many are there? 2. Right? One is the placebo and one is the actual drug. All right, what are some ways the researchers could choose a biased sample for this experiment? How could they make this drug look better than it really is?
Pick all people like
Use the movie,
People that don't have asthma,
But they're picking 200 people.
they could take
They're not allowed to lie.
they could
We're talking about how they pick their patients. How could that affect the outcome?
not have like
They'll have to pick asthma, but you guys are on the right track.
they could have someone like severe asthma.
There it is. So researchers could choose only asthma patients with a very limited age range. Age range. Because maybe you're talking about younger people with asthma, right? Maybe it's easier for them to get through that. You could choose people who are very mild, and you could give them the placebo, or you could give them the drug, and then you could give the people who have very severe symptoms the placebo. Like, those kinds of things are what's going to make it biased. But that's what people can do to make money. So you gotta make sure you're asking these questions when you get a survey. I want to know some information. I don't just want to know the numbers.
Do you imagine the person who conducted the survey? They're all doing it.
No, they do all the time. There was alright, so confounding occurs when there are other possible reasons, called confounds, for the results to have occurred that were not identified prior to the study. So suppose one of the treatment groups was given a drug with an inhaler, and the other group was given a placebo with no inhaler. So confounding occurs when there's other possible reasons. So suppose one of the treatment groups was given the new drug with an inhaler, and the other group was given a placebo with no inhaler. Describe how this design of experiments introduced confound, and the reason is because the treatment group was given a new drug and an inhaler shows an improvement. It's impossible to tell whether it was improvement because of the new drug or if it was the inhaler that was really helping them out. Does that make sense? You see how that's so confounding results, like, we can't really tell. All right.